Hello, everybody. It is great to be here again today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I am the host today of VC TV. And today we're going to be talking about success and failures in fundraising. As I said, my name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 startups and 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Yva.ai, an AI tech company. Love artificial intelligence and quantum computing. I'm the CEO, president, co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, California. So with that, I'd like to introduce my esteemed guest. So first, Kevin, could you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Boom, and then Tobias?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. So I am Kevin Smith. I originally used to work for banks in the City of London, jumped into business development with them, and have been running a business and finance consultancy, working with early stage businesses and helping them to grow. And we are a multi-award winning business and work with them primarily looking at strategy and finance and all of that whole area. So pitch decks, business plans, the whole thing. And obviously we come across them, lots of great businesses. Some of them really get what they've got to do and how to go about it. And others of them need a lot more hand holding or nurturing. And we've certainly come across some successes and some failures at that stage, and then helped to shape them to become I guess fulfill their dreams in a much better way. Recently written a book called Startup to Scale Up, which again talks about all of the things that businesses need to do on that journey. And very much looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Tobias?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I hope my internet connection is great. I'm calling out of Cambodia, Siem Reap, Angkor Wat right now. So it's a nice place to be. And been investment banking before, then went to the sort of the venture capital side of things, worked for a bigger US fund before. And then we launched Blockchain Founders Fund, which is an early stage venture capital fund. We backed 82 investments or 82 startups over the last 3 years. We just closed a new $75 million fund out of Singapore. We focus predominantly on emerging tech, in particular blockchain, and not a token fund, equity focused, but do very, very early stage investments, seed, pre-seed predominantly, and follow on with tickets at a larger scale once they're part of the portfolio to really help and sort of drive value with them together. And yeah, excited to talk about success and fundraising, just coming out of a fundraise. has been interesting.
Either fund or fund.
No, I've been raising capital on startup side a lot, but that was interesting because it was raising for a fund, which has still a little bit different dynamics in my opinion. And then we also do a lot of token raises as well. So seeing the fundraising side from a lot of different angles.
So let's talk about it a little bit. So you have these startups, Kevin. And so if you look at what's the biggest mistake that a startup does, the mistake that you see on time and time again that they do when they're raising money, what's one of those mistakes? Let's talk about, top 3, but
I guess, as you say, that there's a number of classic mistakes, and obviously they are focused around raising finance. So the first one, I guess, is there's still a large number of businesses that have no real understanding of how to value their business, and they come up with their projections and their forecasts, and that leads them. So the assumptions are unrealistic, which leads to the unrealistic forecasts, and that then makes them put a ridiculous valuation on their business. And any founder, as we know, is sort of, you have to be optimistic, but you also have to be realistic. And the worst thing that you can do to a potential investor is to show them that you're a startup this week, and next year you're turning over you're turning over 10 million, and then 100 million, etc., etc. You may do it. It may be possible, but unless you've got real solid proof that how you're going to get there, so many of them just assume they're going to take 10% of the market next year, and that sort of blows the credibility out of the water. But linked to that very much, I find, is it's very, very common that we get founders come to us not too late, but in an unrealistic timescale. So they come to us saying, hey, we need to raise this amount of money, and we want it in 2 months' time. Again, might be possible. You might find an angel, a family office, whatever, that really gets it and likes it with their heart and their head and wants to get in. But most of the time, it's going to take 6 months or more in terms of those negotiations, depending on who the investor is, how much you're wanting to raise, what round you're at, how much evidence you've got. So they're the two big things that I come across time and time again: valuation and unrealistic timescale.
So now let's talk about the valuation side, right? So the valuations, we deal a lot with Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and one of the reasons people come over then Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland is because the valuations in Silicon Valley are higher. Why is that?
I guess, if you speak to any investor, they always will tell you that they have lots of money. There just aren't enough businesses out there that are good enough to justify them investing in. And yet, if you speak to any business looking for finance, they will tell you how very difficult it is to raise that finance. So again, that's about trying to match the expectations of both sides, as it were. And it's obviously up to the business to come up to the mark of the investor, rather than the other way around. But I think there is simply more money in the States, so there is more availability. So maybe they're just having to compete that much harder.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The competition,
businesses, so therefore are prepared to pay more.
The competition, people seem to get it because you got a huge network of people that, I know when we did Yva, so our AI HR tech company, we raised $7 million in a pre-seed round for the company, and it was easy because people got it. The other thing is, stacking the deck. One of the things that we did is we stacked the deck with the right kind of advisors. I got the former chief security officer at Apple on board the company, because security and privacy always comes up as an issue, right? And it makes people feel great. So, hey, with Tobias, so you're around the world. You're in Cambodia today. You do a lot of work in Southeast Asia, from Singapore, originally from Germany. But how is it in Asia right now? I mean, what's happening in terms of the environment? Is it easy for those companies to raise money? Hard? Do they have interesting technologies or not? What do you think?
I think there's a couple of points towards it, right? So first of all, Southeast Asia differs vastly, right? I mean, Singapore is quite easy for a lot of companies to raise big rounds. And then if you go to a country right now, Cambodia, for example, where there's simply not a lot of capital inflow, right? For ventures, right? For other real estate, yes, but like for ventures, it's different. I'm on a board though of a company who raised the largest seed round in Cambodia ever, which is $3.9 million, which kind of like set a benchmark, which was interesting. But that was basically the only one, right? I mean, Cambodia right now, there are 2 venture capital funds with an AUM of combined, I think, $55 million. But you do see a lot more even US-based funds who come to Southeast Asia because they understand the market, understand how much potential is there, right? Especially in markets like the Philippines, Indonesia, where there's just like a tremendous amount of people, where there is a very young age group, right? On average, like 28 or 30 years. People are very tech savvy. They want to jump on this digital wave. Maybe right now, not on an extremely sophisticated level as of now, at least in parts of Asia. But pay now, pay later has been crushing it, right? E-commerce was very successful with Shopee, Lazada, and all these players. But now even we see in Philippines, for example, Vietnam as well, Singapore, where there's a lot more sophisticated deep tech innovations coming out. Food tech's also been very exciting. AI Gary, something interesting for you. But even in the blockchain space, right? Axie Infinity was out of Vietnam, which is now the largest blockchain game in the world, and a lot of DeFi stuff, which targets big financial institution. So I think it's getting easier to raise in Southeast Asia, although we still see that the majority of money is pouring into the top 3 sort of unicorns, right? Which was like Grab, Gojek, Shopee, Lazada, and then like these other smaller ones, they raise smaller rounds. And India is also getting a tremendous drive right now. We also did 2 investments recently, which is exciting, together with Sequoia and Lightspeed, who are also becoming very, very active in the area and the region.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. How do you deal with the cultural differences, Tobias, when you go from Cambodia to Vietnam to the Philippines to Thailand? I mean, how do you deal with the nuances of the culture? How does that factor in?
To be honest, as long as you spend, I think, a bit of time there, not necessarily physically in the market. I think now, being digital opens a couple of doors as well. But the key point in these markets is really networking, right? So from a deal sourcing perspective, from even getting access to like talking to those people, it's a lot of stuff is around network. So we do spend a lot of time speaking on very dedicated panels, being in founders group, being in a market present myself on a regular basis, as much as of course with COVID it was possible, and then just connecting and through, right? And then we also have a bunch of investors out of Thailand, out of Singapore, which helps sort of opening doors as well for the fund. But I do think that you need to dedicate time in order to be successful, right? Either having a dedicated office there or like someone who is hired from a local place. It just makes things a lot easier to communicate, to, as you said, understand the cultural nuances, but also just getting access, right? Because it is still a bit of a different environment. But I think it's the same in Silicon Valley, right? If you don't have any access point there and you're just a fresh newcomer, it's probably also not the easiest place to immediately get to know everyone. It might be faster because people are more open and more connected, but
well, I mean, they're open in one sense, but I got to tell you, in reality, just from my experience, and I've been doing it, I've been out there for 35 years. So there's like 3 levels. One is, what you read about in the magazines, where you come in your flip flops or your sandals and your shorts, and you come in and what's happening. So that's kind of like, door 1. But remember, those engineers can make $350,000 to $500,000 a year too. So
exactly.
you got a different kind of a gig. Plus, you got weather. Weather's really great in California, so people can go to the beach, and there's a factor for the weather. The second tier, tier 2 is you get into those connections. You have some type of success in a startup. You have some visibility and start to broach the next level up, which is where there starts to become money. They start to see you and understand. But then in the third level, it's really you get inside because you've had a successful exit, or you've been brought in by somebody like Elon Musk, or somebody that's had success in that environment, and they bring you in and you start to become part of the club. And it is truly like a club. They do hang together. They do deals together. I mean, I've been in situations personally, and in one of my significant investments was just because I happened to be in the office at 9:00 with my billionaire partner, who got a phone call, right? And he said, "Oh, do you want to invest in this particular company?" And my friend and my partner said, "I'll invest." And I said, "That sounds great. I want to invest too." And it's going through the roof. So it's a closed community, but you got to get inside of it and get the visibility and trust and credibility to make it work. But I guess that's the same way it is, just like we all talk here, right? It's the same way internationally. When we're doing deals in Germany, there's certain people that, certain families, certain VCs that you talk to. When you're in Singapore, wherever it is. Africa, the same way. We spend a lot of time in Africa, it's the same way. But that's how it is. You got to share deals and opportunities. And if you got a really good one, you share it, because if you bring that in, the next time somebody's going to bring you 1 or 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it really works. So let's talk about, so if we look at it, what happens, you get a company coming in, Kevin, they ask you for some guidance. They've got a very cool company that's in supply chain 4.0. what do you tell that company in terms of they're going for a Series A round? They're asking you for advice. They're going to go global. What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, again, I mean, it depends where they are. So perhaps, hopefully by then, they've already got most of the basics. But as you said, it's extremely important that they've got the right team around them in terms of the core management team, the day-to-day team. But it's also extremely important from raising finance that you've got the right advisory board around you, the right names on that deck, the people that they can call upon. Not just that they're there to be seen to be there, but they really are able to be contacted in need as well, because that always gives investors a lot of comfort, because those advisors, depending on their exact role, but those advisors can either be making sure that those founders are staying honest and delivering what they're meant to be doing on a week-to-week, month-to-month type basis. But also they're a proper guiding force that can help them through those issues that they don't know. And with any founder, again, you've mentioned some, but with any business, so often they're fantastic full stack developers or whatever it happens that they are, but they don't necessarily understand, and no reason they should, but about what they need to do to run a business. So making sure all those systems and procedures are in place, and they've gone through the legal bits they need to, and the fundraising processes and how that all works and hangs together. So we can help them with all of that process. And it depends. In the UK, there's various tax benefits that investors get, so EIS and SEIS and things like that. So we can help make sure that they've got all of those in place. They're only relevant, those particular tax breaks, to private investors, so not VCs. But so it depends where they are, and whether it's a seed round or a Series A or whatever, as to exactly what that advice is and who else is already involved and where they're getting that advice from. So all of our clients and the people we work with, we take a very sort of one-to-one approach and look at where they are now and what they've achieved and with what resources, and then where they're trying to get to and what their final goal is, and what the steps are to get to that goal. And internationally, we've already touched upon culture. So I've worked, like you guys, I've worked in 45 countries, and you actually really do need to understand the culture of different countries and how it works, as well, of course, as the legal structures and everything else. But with the internet, etc., I mean, you only go back 10 or so years ago, and actually just exporting to different countries was so much more difficult. But you can start to get into countries by selling via the internet as a starting point, and getting a good agent, and then sort of developing out. So it depends on what the product and service is, which part of the world, how they're going to go about it. But all of those different things come into play. And again, one of the errors that we see is with businesses that just don't have the resources, whether it's people resources or whether it's financial resources, is trying to take on too much too soon. So I say, hey, we've done the seed round, we're going well in the UK or wherever it happens to be. And then they think, right, we're now going to do Europe and the USA next year. You think, well, hold on, why don't we do one at a time? And again, Europe isn't one country; it's different places with different nuances. So I think it's all those different areas that they need to be aware of, and doing it in a proper managed, staged process, rather than trying to rush out and do everything all at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kevin. Hey, Tobias, got a question for you. So you have a company come into you that looks really cool. To Kevin's point, they got really incredible technology, but the management team sucks. What do you do?
It's actually a really, really good question, because it happens more often than people actually think. I mean, for us, like founder due diligence is a very big part of it, right? We even do background checks and a bunch of other things. So I really understand that pain point. Now, most of the time, an idea is great, but it's all about execution, right? I mean, I think as you would probably agree, you see the same ideas a lot of different times, but just in a different color, different format with a different team, right? So, I mean, we always try, and I would say we're very founder friendly, right? We haven't fired any CEO yet or things like this, as probably some other funds do. I think for us, it's really about setting up these weekly calls and trying to be coachable, right? In case it's really not possible, then we would definitely not make the investment in the first place, right? That for us, this is 100% sort of red flag if the founder or like if the CEO is first of all not committed, or doesn't understand the business, the market. I think you can ask a couple of questions on calls, and I think you get a pretty fast, a decent understanding of how well the founder actually understands the business he's operating or he or she's operating in.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think firing someone out of the business is just like, it happens and it can happen, but I think it's always about trying to work around with it, right? What can you do? Can you maybe move the person in a different position to be more effective in the business, right? Can you hire someone else to replace this gap in knowledge or operational skill? Because in the end, if you think about it, of course, there's a lot of money involved, but I do think that, founder first, right? I think, and probably if you've ever been a founder, I think you kind of understand what I'm saying. It's just, I think for me, this is a very big principle. And if I don't see myself doing this, then also probably the investment won't be the right fit for me. But I do agree, man, if at some point in time it happens, and then we probably need to figure out if we either need to pick someone instead of the same position, but it shouldn't be the first solution, in my opinion. It should always be a way of doing it, but like there should be a communication, a coaching, some sort of other ways to figure out how to make this work. But it happens a lot of time, unfortunately.
No, I agree with you. I mean, and part of it is, having the right kind of fund and investors where they're part of the team and they help guide the company. Because listen, as a CEO of the company, from my perspective, and having been in a couple of unicorns, it ain't easy. And if it was, everybody be doing it. So if you don't keep your ears open, and God gave you 2 ears and a mouth for a reason, and so if you listen, you got to have that feedback in order to pivot. I mean, with Yva, my company, we pivoted 3 times. I did a Google-like search for the personal cloud, and guess what? It's a great idea. We had 19 patents, and everybody loses things all the time. But the problem is nobody's willing to spend money because Google gives them the stuff for free. They think, right? They don't understand that, there's a reason Gmail is Gmail and what they get from it. So, and then we pivoted to a smart assistant. And of course, Google came out with a smart assistant, and, the rest is history. So I pivoted the company to HR tech using the same kind of search technologies, and we hit the jackpot. 38 times inbound interest at the beginning of the pandemic, 10 times sales last year. So, I mean, you can get down through, and that's one of my companies. But, and it doesn't hurt to have a billionaire partner either, by the way. It really does help. I got to tell you, it really does make raising money a lot easier because you can go to his friends and your friends, and it's a good story. But that's another part of it, right? So we look at it, Tobias. When you look at the company and you see name brand recognition there in the company, how much does that impact you? Let's say the advisors are internationally known. You've got a Rick Orloff or a Guy Kawasaki or Bill Reichert, people like that. Does that make you feel more comfortable with the company? How does that make you feel?
I mean, subconsciously, I definitely think it makes you feel more comfortable. I mean, the point is always, I can always put a picture of someone on a slide deck, right? For me, it's more important than how is this person actually involved in the business, right? Because, and that's basically for everyone, right? And not just for the advisor, that's also for the employees. For me, it's always important how many people are actually committed to this business, right? And not just like working a couple of hours there, or like, agreed over email that I might put the picture there. Like that's always the idea. If that both checks out, then obviously I think it makes a lot of things more comfortable, because obviously network is always a big part of everything, right? So if those people have a good connection to that, I think it helps. But it doesn't like justify a bad idea, in my opinion, Like, so if the business doesn't make sense, if the market is too small, or like, if there's other red flags in our process, a great advisor board won't cut it, right? But it could be a nice add-on feature as soon as I understand how much are those people involved, what is their commitment towards the business, have they maybe potentially invested, right, to like be fully committed to this thing, or is there certain advisory meetings every month, every quarter, every year, to just really feel what is actually behind those numbers or words or faces, right? That's my take on it.
No, I agree with you.
I think, sorry, if I can jump in, I think there's another element to it as well, or another level as well, and that is whether you're a VC, whether you're a family office or an individual, I think there's always comfort by knowing that somebody else has looked at the team, the idea, the business, the structure, gone through it, and they've come to the same conclusions as you have, that it's an investable deal. And so you do see time and time again, you see VCs saying, well, yes, they're interested, but they'll put up half the money, find someone else to co-invest. And it's just that sort of sense check, isn't it, of trying to make sure that there's somebody else out there, and for whatever reason, they see the benefits as clearly as you do. So I think there's that element in there as well.
Okay, so Kevin, I want to jump on a point here. Why do you look at it? A lot of times investors say, if you have a lead, I'll follow. Why do they do that? Are they buying time? Why is that? I hear that a lot.
For me, my experience of that is when they aren't necessarily a specialist in that sector and they're looking for a lead that understands that specific sector in more detail. So they like it in principle, they just don't feel 100% comfortable that they quite fully understands the technology or the whatever it happens to be. And so they're looking for somebody that sort of is a, as I say, more expert in a specific sector. So that's where I'd normally see it with VCs. With family offices or high net worth, sometimes it's simply a case, as I said, wanting to feel that there's somebody else out there that gets it as well, but for no apparent reason. And yeah, sure, other times there are those that are just saying it's to buy time and just see if somebody else is interested.
Okay. I would even be a little bit more harsh on this, right? Because of course, like, expertise plays a role, but it's always easier to mess something up and say, oh, but everyone else was also in there, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? That's
exactly. I mean,
I'm not the only
that's
one
why
screwed up on this deal.
It's also interesting, if we see sometimes ask this question immediately, is like literally the first question is like, who else is part of this, right? Or who else has signed up this? I think that's already a bit of a challenging question if a VC is asking this, because in the end, I mean, it's great if other people are in, but like most of the amazing investments we have done when no one believed in this, right? And I think that's also where most of the unicorns coming out. It's not like following on in a trend where everybody's already in. Yeah, you might make a little bit of return, but the best and also I think the most rewarding thing as an investor is finding something when no one believes in it, and then shifting or pivoting a certain industry, a bracket, or whatever that might be, with that new solution this company is offering, right? And like that's where obviously you probably have a high risk, but you also have a very, very high reward. So I understand the question, and it's partly I think also because expertise and things like this, right? You might want to double check and get the diligence support, but it's also about like if you're not 100% comfortable, or like if you are, in a way, it's always good to know that someone else is also in there. Also, I think partly from marketing perspective, right? I mean, you can say, oh, you co-invested with XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But I think the VC industry has to move a little bit away from this, right? Because now we're again following or like backing one specific bracket of people and not being broad enough to foster proper innovation and talent across the globe, right?
Well, I mean, that's part of the problem today, right? Think about this. StreamYard, which we're on today, is founded in 2018. I was one of the original Zoom users. So I happened to be introduced to Zoom from their one of their VC funds. I would send out the link to Zoom and people said, why would I want to do this? I have Skype. Skype is fine. I have WhatsApp. And I said, because this is really good. And, the rest is history. So we look at it. Look at where we are today. We're in all different parts of the world. We're in the UK. We're in Cambodia. I'm in Palm Beach at the moment. I mean, the situation is we've really democratized opportunity, and the people that don't think out of the box, to your point, Tobias, and look for those technologies are going to come. They're going to be the followers, because I invest in Africa. I've got companies in Ghana, Zambia, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya. So these are places where you've got 38 countries. You got a population of 1.3 billion people that are with the youngest population under 30 as a continent on the planet. So we need to look at these places at the same time. And I just had this conversation. I want to put it out here today with some ultra high net worth families that are friends. And one thing they're really concerned about is what's happening on the planet, right? With climate. The average temperatures will go up 7 degrees Fahrenheit, estimated by the end of this century. With it by 2050, just in Florida, on the east coast of the United States, the sea levels will go up 1 foot just by 2050. And then it starts to grow very, very quickly after that. At the same time, population going from 8 billion to 13 billion. We've got a lot of challenges in front of us. And then family offices I talked to one that's very interesting. Talk about investments. I said, what are you going to invest in? And I said, well, what about space travel, going to Mars? He said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to invest in space travel. I'm afraid if we can't take care of our planet, why should we ever be allowed to go to Mars? And this is a extremely, over $100 billion family office, right? And so the situation is, we've got to look at those technologies where we combine together. We got a lot of, from my perspective, a lot of opportunities out there to make the world a better place. Supply chain 4.0, manufacturing, healthcare, all kinds of ways. So what do you think? I mean, are the companies that are out there, what do they need to focus on in order to make to get funded today? Kevin, what is an area? So if you look at the top 2 areas, what do you think?
Without any doubt, I mean, investors are looking for impact investments, and the businesses that are finding it easiest to raise finances, some sort of circular economy or something along those sort of lines that will both moving forward in whatever it is they're trying to do, but is also very much in one form or another doing it in a different way, so that it's, as I say, recycling goods or upscaling things, or ideally, as I say, some sort of circular economy, so that it's all going round and it's actually improving the planet. So it's not just carbon neutral, but it's actually improving the situation. So they're the ones that are finding different solutions or different ways of doing things that we're already doing, but in a different way, and they're the ones, without any doubt, that are raising the finance most quickly, because that's where the interest is, and it's the ones that, if they get it right, they've got the biggest chance of making good profits in the shorter term. So again, it's good business as well as good ethics.
No, I agree. I was told yesterday, I had thought that the garbage in the oceans was the size of the state of Rhode Island. Somebody corrected me yesterday and said it's the size of the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that with fishing nets and hurricane and garbage from ships, etc. That's a lot of stuff, by the way, and it does absorb a lot of light and does heat the ocean. So anyhow, Tobias, if you look at it, blockchains out there. What about, quantum computers? I'm talking to some of the labs at places like Harvard and MIT. Quantum computers are very soon going to be able to attack the blockchain. How in the world what do you look at when you're looking at these companies that are in the blockchain or gaming? What are you looking at? What's important for you?
Yeah. I mean, we always look for, like, blockchain is great, right? But blockchain cannot be the reason for the investment, right? That I think that's like a very clear point. Even in gaming, like, just because this game does use blockchain is not necessarily a good investment, right? You mentioned gaming, and I know it's been going through the roof lately over the last month. But the problem here, for example, is that a lot of these games, they're not actually being built, right? They have 0 users. No one actually has built and played the game. No one actually knows if the game is fun to play. And just the play to earn feature with a tokenomics where you're potentially going to earn something is probably not gonna make it right over that long period. To give you an idea, there are games out there that have a 10 to 50 year development plan, right? But right now they're launching a token. The token goes up 50, 100x, goes down. And now the question is, can the community and the token price therefore sustain a 10-year life development cycle and still being relevant in 10 years so that the investment right now makes sense?
What do you
That's a question.
Yeah, what do you think? Would you bet on it?
No, that's why I've never done such investments, right?
Exactly.
I've done gaming companies.
You don't even know what's going to happen next month rather than 10 or 50
exactly.
years from now, right?
Right. And I want to play the game before I actually make an investment, right? I mean, I want to use the solution, even if it's like an MVP or like a beta or something. I want to be able to see it, to play around with it and see if it makes sense. And with these investments, I mean, my opinion, they're just overhyped, right?
Got it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. You got to make sure it's real and it's realistic expectations, and they're doable.
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen this stuff too. It's people are forecasting out 10 years, 20 years. I mean, we don't have a clue what's going to happen next year in some senses. So it's good to make sure that you're not irrationally exuberant, as Alan Greenspan said a long time ago.
I'd like to pick up on your point, Gary, and ask Tobias Tobias for his opinion. Though, in my opinion, quantum computing is going to revolutionize computers and the world. And yes, in theory, they have the ability to unpick blockchains and crypto and all the rest of it. But I don't think quantum computing is going to be scalable in the way that it's going to be out there to be used in the sort of time scale that your comments, Gary, suggested they would be. And therefore, surely blockchain and cryptos and everything else will have had time to react to that. So in order to make things more difficult, as it were, so that they're still not crackable. So that's my take on it. But I'd be very interested to know other people's.
Yeah, so I mean, what they're saying right now, and we I've been privileged to have been involved in the beginning of the COVID situation where they used quantum computers and AI for drug discovery. I was one on a panel of 8. Mm-hmm. Why they wanted a country boy from Pennsylvania, I have no idea. But I was there with people way smarter than me. But here's what I can tell you: between 2022 this year and 2027, blockchain, cryptocurrencies could be cracked by some nefarious characters. There are state operators out there that have the capabilities that have developed to that extent. The question is, when you're talking about a computer, this is Google, right? 100 million times faster than a supercomputer, the fastest supercomputer today, which means that what would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer takes 200 seconds on a quantum. That order of magnitude. Yes, there's issues with stability, et cetera, but we're edging through some of that. The problem is you also have the Chinese that have systems that 100 times faster than that, right? Reportedly, and so the question is, if we look at it, the capabilities are there. The question is in whose hands they're going to be, and when is it going to start to move down? It happens just like many years ago when we had these IBM mainframes. Now what we have in the phone is 100 times faster, 1,000 times faster than that. So it's just it's a matter of time, but it's estimated between 2022 and 2027. I just looked the cybersecurity report just to check it out. So it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, and what are we going to do? I mean, the other thing is 2 quantum computers basically facing off against each other to present shield for attack. There are some ways to do it, but you're talking about incredibly advanced, unsupervised and semi-supervised AI that can work so fast it's blinding.
No, I think it's exciting, right? And I don't necessarily also see this as a pure negative thing for blockchain. And blockchain is going to evolve in 5 years, right? No one knows exactly where the journey is going and what's going to happen. Maybe that could be even used to make blockchain stronger, right? I mean, it's always an angle from where you look at it, in my opinion. And I'm excited to see where this quantum computing is going. And there's obviously a lot more power being sort of executed, but in the end, in my opinion, can we use that for good, right? Can we use something like a blockchain and quantum computing, right? I don't know, right? Is that a possibility? And I think time will tell. But in the meantime, it's really for us about finding really awesome founders who have a great vision, want to use the blockchain technology in its core to solve a problem, and we're more than happy to support them and help them fundraise over a long period of time and drive value with them.
No, that's a great, we're coming to the top of the hour. That's a great summary. Tobias, how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. Just my name, Tobias Bauer, as you can see it here on the screen as well, or over my email, which is toby@blockchainff.com. Always happy to look at pitch decks, talk to interesting people, or meet up in person. If someone is in Dubai next week, let me know.
Yeah, sounds great. Kevin, summary, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, likewise, LinkedIn. So Kevin R. Smith, because Smith is a fairly common name. There's an MSc after that, but I'm active on LinkedIn, or likewise Kevin at Boom and Partners Limited, but it's AND Partners. It's not Anthrosan. But yeah, always around. I also write a lot of published articles and such things. So I'm sure you'll find me somewhere on that great World Wide Web that we've all come to need, as we will do quantum computers at some stage in the near future.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you both, and I would like to thank the entire LaToken VC TV team for making it possible today. Hazmik, thank you very much. My name is Gary Fowler, and I was honored to be the host today. I'm the CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios. If you need something, you're venture building, you're looking at getting some investment, give us a call. We love AI and quantum computers, and we're there to help. Take care of yourself, stay safe, stay happy, and have an amazing day. Stay tuned for another edition of VCTV. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Bye-bye.